Hi guys, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. It's me, Steve Hall, and Ada. I don't know what we give her last name. I'm going to call her Can Hall. I'm going to give Charlotte the benefit of being first within the double barrel. And on the other end is Pascal, and you're just solo. Where's the dog at this time, can I ask?
So on a Tuesday, he's actually out with a sitter, a dog sitter, just to socialize a little bit, to interact with other dogs. And this time we are recording on a Tuesday. Normally we are recording on a Wednesday. And right now, he's still at an age where he's then needing to stay downstairs, because the times when he stayed with me in my office, it didn't really work out. He was just like biting on cables, I don't know, howling the entire time and stuff like this, you know, and it didn't really work out. Hopefully in the future, that when he's a little bit older, a little bit more calmed down, relaxed, he can then stay with me. But for now, he needs to then stay downstairs.
Yeah. He won't. I don't think he'll be on your lap somehow when he's fully grown.
Man, he's going to be a big one anyway. And yesterday was so cute. And so many people, many listeners who don't own a dog, they can't really relate to that. But dog owners probably can relate. Yesterday, I was lying on the couch, and of course, I am his person, so to speak. Don't know what it's called on English, but the main person that takes care of him. Yesterday we were lying on the couch, we were watching some trash TV, and he was then coming onto the couch and actually then basically lying on me, which he never has done before, and it was so cute. Like just like hugging him and just like taking care. It was just so cute. God damn it.
I love it when they just like nestle into you and like they rest their head on you like this. It's just like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're so right in terms of like, if you've never like had a dog as a pet or owned a dog, and even if you've had a dog as a pet, you may have not really like interacted with it that much. I'm not sure. But because I never owned dogs and I didn't get it at all until we got one, and it was like, oh, this is why people are like obsessed with this thing that just like, and, I mean, unconditionally loves them.
And in the early years of a dog, they are probably not as attached to you so far, but it's now slowly probably getting to the point where he's more and more becoming attached to us. And you know that love and attachment is genuine and real. Right, and that feeling alone, it's quite a selfish thing, to be honest, but it's a great feeling. I can't deny that.
I think you spoke about it before. If now, I probably would have never got a dog if it wasn't for Charlotte. But if I was single at this moment in time, I would so want a dog.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Just, like the benefits of just having someone with you, and like 100%. Especially when you work from home and do what we do, it's so nice to have like a colleague, but not a colleague.
100%. And that was, I know that I've talked about it on the Improvement Season in the past, of like the dream that I had, having a dog that is your best friend, your best buddy. You're going on a holiday somewhere in Norway at a lake and chopping wood or so, and he's just like by your side.
I would love to be able to do that, but I know if I tried to go to a wood and let Ada off the lead, she would just be like gone trying to hunt something. She'd just be like, fuck this shit, I'm gonna go get that squirrel.
Yeah, absolutely. So Steve, first things first, as every listener knows, the first part of the Improvement Season podcast is always the most important one, where we are discussing very, very important topics. Everyone knows this. And I had a question over on Instagram. Someone actually then asked, like, where can he submit some questions? So, like, just go over and send it via DMs, and I will make sure to cover it, or go over to our Discord and actually post it there. So he was then posting a question, and for every listener who is really not interested in that, feel free to skip that part. I could imagine that some people are just like, I don't bother, I don't care listening to this, but out of respect also for someone who is curious about this, and also because I respect when just listeners want our take and opinion on certain things, I want to respect that, and of course then also ask you that question first. So, personal question for the podcast. How old were you and Steve when you lost your virginity? That was the first question.
That's not a legit question.
It is.
No, it actually. I need to see these.
It is. I'm not kidding. It is. So, yeah. Do you want to answer that question?
No, I don't believe that that's a legit question.
It is.
You're pulling my leg completely.
No, it is. It truly is.
Oh dear. Okay, well, I don't mind answering anyway. So I was 16.
I was 16 as well, Steve.
Yeah.
Hey.
We were legal.
Virginity or losing virginity buddies. I think it's a fairly common age, I would assume. I know lots of people who were like around 16 when they lost their virginity. And
like 12 or something crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. When I was younger, do you still remember the movie Kids?
No.
No?
I don't think so.
It's kind of, it's more like kids in New York. So I'm not the best in explaining the plot. So it's a group of kids and friends in New York who are then into drugs and all that kind of stuff. And they are 12 years only, right? And they were already having sex and all that kind of stuff. And that left a huge impression when you were younger, right? Never heard of that one? I think it's called Kids. Quite certain.
If my perception of the world is correct, I feel like people are losing their virginity later in life now. Everything seems to be getting delayed, like people having kids later, married later, versus many years before where everything was a little bit earlier, it feels like.
You think so? I would have thought that it's actually earlier. I could be completely wrong.
No,
but
that's my perception.
It's very interesting because your perception is completely the opposite to mine. And I have no idea what is actually right.
I think it's like, sorry, just to say on this, like it's the like, I don't know, people are talking about like toxic masculinity and how like there's people like, what's his name, Andrew Tate or whatever, and people similar to him who are talking about how hard men have it now and how sexless men are at this like this like time of like, I don't know, within our generation, like they're the most sexless generation or something. So maybe I'm biased due to like seeing some of this information being put out there and like honestly, where are they pulling it out from their arse? I don't know, probably.
I'm interested in, and I haven't asked him the question, why someone wants to know when we lost our virginity, because why is that relevant? I'm just interested and curious, right? Because
that's why I thought it was a joke.
but perhaps it could be that some individuals simply don't know when other people lost their virginity and are just curious about this, right? Yeah. And we are all curious and curious about certain other things, you know? And and the first time I had sex, it was awful. It wasn't
Can I guess the second question?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's like, how many people have you slept with? It's not going to be that, is it?
No, nothing to do with that. It's a very funny question though as well.
Okay.
And that is, who is your favorite actor?
Oh shit. You go first. I don't know at the moment off the top of my head.
Yeah, to be honest, there aren't really many people that come to my mind when it comes to this. Because over the past years, and I've voiced my opinion on Hollywood a couple of times already on this Improvement Season podcast, that I'm not the biggest fan of the direction Hollywood went over the past couple of years, and that there were fewer and fewer movies coming out that were truly great. And then there are certain actors that had a tremendous performance in certain movies. And that's just like, I would imagine cool guys. So for example, Willem Dafoe is a freaking amazing actor in my opinion. Also, someone like Jim Carrey, if you just like take a look at his facial expressions and all that kind of stuff, and especially the early stages of his career, it's just like incredible to watch.
He's a certain taste, Jim Carrey. You either love or hate him.
Absolutely. But I think that you only know him as the comedian, and there are very good movies, especially the drama. What's it called again? It has a very, very long name with Kate Winslet. Kate Winslet. It's kind of a romantic drama. Very, very good, right? And you see him from a different side and different angle. Same goes for Truman Show, right? It's actually a drama. It's not really a comedy. So
Truman
those
Show's
people,
scary, that film.
yeah, it is. Right. And also Robert Pattinson, for example, right? Because back then I know that Robert Pattinson became famous due to the entire, what's it called again? The vampire series.
I can't.
Right?
I haven't seen it. I know
Twilight, that is.
Twilight,
right?
that's the one.
And you were very convinced, like, oh man, another beautiful man who does some shitty movies and all that kind of stuff. But he is a very, very good actor as well. And he was actually making a movie together with Willem Dafoe, The Lighthouse. Very interesting movie, not for everyone, more like indie kind of style, but a very, very cool one. And he's actually a very, very good actor.
I'm going to say Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Sorry. No, sorry. I like him as an individual. He is not my favorite actor. He's just in so many productions now. Someone who comes to mind is Samuel L. Jackson, just because I like Pulp Fiction and films like that. He always just plays a really cool character. And I don't know, how can you not like Samuel L. Jackson? He's just like fucking such a cool person. But you're right. Sometimes I have actors who I really like them in some things, but I don't like them in everything. So like Robert Downing Jr., like I love him as Iron Man, but in like, I don't know, I'm just not into Sherlock Holmes. Like I know he was in that recently. I don't know. So it's a hard one to answer like specifically.
Someone that comes to my mind is also Matthew McConaughey, for example. Very, very cool actor. Had some tremendous roles. In True Detective, for example, Interstellar, also a very, very great movie as well with him. But yeah, that's
and
basically
Jennifer
it.
Lawrence as a female, I like. She's also fairly attractive.
Yeah, she's too woke for me, to be honest. I simply don't like. Yeah, I simply don't like that cancel culture, wokeness, Hollywood kind of stuff.
As an actor.
Yeah, but I mean, if that plays into that, and you make some statements and comments that. I don't know, that directly
I don't
impacts.
know these comments. I only know what the film she's been in, so I'm taking it as that.
Yeah. And there were lots of comments like very woke comments where I'm just like, sorry, but this isn't true. This isn't reality. And maybe you think that you're doing something good here, but you aren't, right? And that then directly ties into she as an actress. Unfortunately, because I really liked her when it was the last movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, where the doomsday scenario was actually taking place, the Netflix movie.
Can't remember that one. Maybe I don't know. I can't remember.
She was a scientist there, and that was, for example, also a very good movie together with her. But I wouldn't really count her as a very good actress, in my opinion. There are probably better ones out there. Anyway,
not an area I know a lot of.
So yeah, back at the Improvement Season podcast now. So Steve, regards to training.
Were those the only two?
Yeah, these were the only two questions.
They're so random. So random.
But out of respect for our listeners, I wanted to, of course, also bring those up as well. I hope that was. I mean,
now we've migrated the Improvement Season. It feels like we can just like talk about anything because it's so separate from the main podcast now, and I feel less bad about it. And I think people, I don't know, they just find it interesting hearing about our perspectives on things. And there's probably a lot of people who listen who are of a similar age or coming like a bit younger or a bit older, and I don't know, they might find it
what
interesting.
is funny,
in terms of
Steve, and it's actually not funny because it's impacting a lot of people, unfortunately. A couple of years back in 2020, when COVID happened, I was talking about kind of inflation and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you recall that. And recently, when I was migrating the Improvement Season podcast onto his own RSS feed, I was finally getting access to the Apple podcast platform. And for the first time in ages, I was able to look at the reviews. And there was a comment there talking about what a joke I am, talking about inflation and all that kind of stuff, that this will never happen and take place, that I'm so full of shit and should stay in my lane and all that kind of stuff, which he has a point, right? It is out of my scope of practice, but it's funny that it now came to fruition when it comes to this and the entire economic situation in the world, with the banking sector right now crumbling as well, that many things are actually starting to take place, which is, of course, very unfortunate because it really does impact a lot of people. But at the same time, I find it funny because it's just, it's kind of like a confirmation bias where I was right and everyone can say wholeheartedly that being right just feels good. In that situation, I would love to not be right, but it just happened. And I just saw that comment and found it funny because of the things that you just brought up, that we are now free or more free to talk about the things that we want. And then in the past, getting shit for something that actually came true is quite ironic.
Yeah, I find it hard that people... It's not like people come here for financial advice. So they know if we were to talk about such things, it's not like you're advising people on how to manage their finances. You're just talking about something you're interested in that you've seen. Just like with us talking about actors that we like. It's not like we're saying, these are the best actors. Absolutely. It's just like, yeah, from what we've seen, this is, and you have more of an interest in finances than I would say the average person for sure, but not as far as an expert in the field. But again, like people aren't coming to this podcast to learn about finances.
Yeah.
I hope not.
No, absolutely. You bring up a good point. These are just like our observations and our opinions on certain matters. But I do respect, though, when some people say like, hey, you better stay in your lane, because there is definitely some truth to it, right? Because you're speaking to an audience. And this is sometimes forgotten because we are just like sitting in front of each other right now, hit the record button and release it. But a couple of thousand people are listening then to that, and you easily forget about it. And of course,
I think it's
right.
It's one thing to have an opinion on a subject, and I would encourage people to be able to voice their opinion, which is what I feel like you did there, versus you saying, I guarantee in the future this is going to happen. Like you're not coming across training nutrition. Yeah, we might talk as authorities on that to some extent, and that's in our scope of practice. So we don't talk authority on other subjects. So yeah, I think I don't know, some people just treat like everything you say like gospel. And if you say a word wrong, they like hound you down.
Yeah. In the end, I'm just a random dude saying things. Whether you put any kind of value or stock into my words is actually your decision.
Yeah.
In the end, right? Or you can just switch off and be like, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and move on with your life. It could be so easy. And yeah, it's quite interesting that often people don't do that. They, I don't know, find it annoying that just a random stranger says something. Don't know.
I often think it says more about that person and what they're going through for them to take the time. Like you think about trolls, like they create a whole separate account and they go comment on things and they have a back and forth with you about something that is just like so nuanced and like niche and like doesn't really matter. And you're just like, why am I wasting my time talking to this like person? Like I could be adding value to someone else. Like social media could be a minefield for these sort of things, which a podcast I would count as part of social media too.
Talking about dogmatic approaches, how's the lengthened partials experiment going?
So I would say it's really, as people will know, and the research even indicates this, there is like marginal differences, even between like doing short partials versus like full ramen. Like the differences are not huge. So it's not like you're going to try this and be like, oh my God, my training feels completely like worse or better or anything. But what I can say is for the movements where there's some movements where it makes more sense to do it, I think generally, that like pulling movements versus like squat patterns or pressing movements. And there are some movements where it's just more practical to do it. So like I was trying to do it on I was doing cable crunches and I was trying to I was like, could I do a lengthened partial on this? I was like, man, how do I do a lengthened partial on this? There's no like clear point where I can stop it. And like calf extensions on the Smith leg press. I was like, I can miss lockout, but that's about as partial as I can go without not really like, it'll be a bit arbitrary to where I stop with my, I don't know how they're doing that actually within the studies because they have done it on calves. But I did, for the first time in a while, today my back is feeling like actual fatigue and a little bit of soreness. And that is after yesterday doing, I added one set from week 1 and that was to my lengthened partial on a single arm lat pull down. So I don't know, like N=1, it seems to have created a bit more disruption than the previous training, but, and it feels good. I will say for back in particular, I do quite like it. However, I do notice, because my biceps in general take over for back movements, I feel a lot of tension within like the tendon, the bicep tendon, when I'm doing particularly on lengthened partials, where I feel a lot of tension through there. So I have to really concentrate to like not grip too hard and pull through my elbow. Otherwise my bicep can just take over. So I don't know. It's kind of like Milo said when I talked to him about it. It's like, like he doesn't think it's night and day. Like it seems to be going fine, but I'm not measuring it any precise measures. So it's just like you kind of said, it's just an experiment to try something a bit different, but it's not going to be wild. So I'm just learning the practical, really, how practical some movements are for it versus others, and where does it feel like it makes more sense versus less sense, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, this is something that we've talked about quite excessively over the past couple of weeks now. We know that also partials do create a proper stimulus, right? Now, of course, you need to take into consideration that if you do partials, most of the time you can actually use more load. More load can actually lead to possibly even more fatigue as well. Maybe even connective tissue breakdown that you don't want or so. But at the same time, we also have proof of plenty of people who have shitty form, not the best form, maybe just wrapping out partials and still get tremendous growth as well.
It's funny because some people have commented on some of my lengthened partials and been like, that's what full ROM looks like for most people. I'm like, yeah, you're true.
That's true.
Especially on pulling movements, like a lot of my movements where I'm doing half the range of motion, or maybe it's a little bit over 2/3. People are like, that's what full ROM looks like for a lot of people, where they just end up like, because the short position is the hardest part on a pull. Yeah. So a lot of people just ignore it almost. Yeah. So yeah, it's also interesting because for movements like pulling, I am noticing that I'm able to do like more reps. So I got 5 more reps on my first partial versus with the same load as my full range of motion. And so maybe there's, like you said, a reason to increase the load for that set and just see how it goes. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm enjoying it.
One argument against it is often like, how do you want to standardize the range of motion? How was it for you then? Do you find this statement to be valid in a situation like this? Or due to your skill of being able to lift or having lifted for such a long time, standardizing even a shortened position or kind of shorter range of motion is actually not a problem for you?
Yeah, I think that kind of standardization is important because how do you track progress otherwise? And I think default full range of motion, similar to like default failure, right? Like a lot of people are like, oh, it's hard to gauge reps in reserve, so I'll just train to failure all the time. It's a fail-safe approach. Same with full ROM. But the same people who use RAR and they say, oh, it's hard to standardize like your range of motion on this movement. It's like, well, it's hard to standardize necessarily always RAR. And we know if you're in a good range, that's all that really matters. So I think for someone more advanced who has a good gauge of it, like it's actually, for a lot of movements, very simple. So like on this single arm lat pull down, I'm like, right, once I go to eye level, I'm good. And on, what was it, the bent over row, I'm like, once I pass my knee, I'm good. The thing that feels awkward, a few of my clients have said the same. As I first started doing this, I felt almost like an imposter. I was wearing like a Team Full ROM vest and then doing partials. I was like, are people looking at me? Do people think this is weird? And I like I said to my clients, and I came to realize no one gives a shit what you're doing in the gym. And a lot of people do shortened partials anyway, like on leg press, for example. So like ultimately people don't care. And then the other thing is just sometimes it just takes me like a few reps to realize I'm doing it a bit further than I probably should, where I'm just used to going full. And then I'm like, oh, I catch myself. I'm like, here. So I think once you kind of get used to it and you like neurologically standardize that range of motion for yourself, you're all good. But I think selecting, like I said, eyesight, that standardizes it. Once you pass your knees, that standardizes it. Like a lot of them you can see visually, or on like a machine row, once you pass like a certain part on the machine, that standardizes it. Like I said, the harder ones are things like, I think like a tricep extension. Like where do you stop? Do you just miss lockout? Which I will say for movements like calf raises and like a tricep pushdown, the lockout is quite often considerably more difficult than the rest of the range of motion. So I do think that's not a bad way to try it. It's like just miss lockout. Same with like if you're doing cable fly or a machine fly, you can kind of just like say, right, don't come together and squeeze, just miss that portion. Or in a dumbbell fly, which I'm doing at the moment, which completely abused my chest yesterday, 2 sets. And I'm kind of going from full stretch to like, what would it be? It'll be like 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So I'm not doing that final bit over the top, which ultimately isn't really loaded because it's like gravity with the dumbbells coming down. And man, it's just, the stretch is gnarly. So it'll be interesting to potentially even compare set numbers. Like you said, am I able to do less or more volume? Do I need less or more volume? But yeah, so far it's like I'm enjoying it. And a question for you, Pascal, have you thought about experimenting with any? Have you experimented? And I'd also say if people are considering it, give it a little bit of time, just like you experiment with any like movement or exercise. You've got to give it a bit of a time because it will feel a bit foreign at first. But once you get it locked in, that's when you can make a decision of yay or nay. It's interesting. Milo, I know, isn't fond of like particularly SFR as like a way to guide training decisions. I've become very fond of it. And I actually find the lengthened partials often work in its favor in that the SFR is sometimes improved when I'm doing it. Well, quite often improved actually. So yeah, anyway. Yeah.
No, I'm stuck in my ways and I will never give it a try because it doesn't really align with my principles. No, but in all honesty, it's something that I'm already implementing. So for example, on the 1-arm machine rows, the hammer strength run, right? When I'm doing those, it is kind of a lengthened partial if you really think about it. And if you then also take a look at my execution in the form video that I'm doing, you can see that it's not like going from here all the way here and bringing the elbows back as far as possible. I'm stopping once I'm kind of parallel to my upper body. Right? I could pull further back, but it doesn't. Also here, once again, to what it is that we're always talking about, it doesn't really feel like it's adding any kind of more benefits from a stimulus perspective. I'm coming here and I feel like this is peak contraction. If I pull any further, I have the feeling that I'm losing that peak contraction even. So also this is already kind of a lengthened partial that I'm doing on that particular movement. Same goes then for, I'm doing seated cable rows, where it's kind of the same spiel as well. I know that some people are then going from a very stretched position to a very arched and extended position. And also there, doesn't really feel that great to me. This may also have to do with my Scheuermann's disease, that going from a rounded spine to a very hyperextended spine doesn't really feel good to me. And this is just like feeling things out, to be honest, right? Yeah. And then doing what your body, the feedback that your body is providing you to some extent. And by that, also individualizing for yourself and not being dogmatic about the name or the term that a specific movement, a specific methodology has, but more so going with what your body, I'm always a little bit careful with when I say like listen to your body, because the body can of course give you false signals at times as well. But especially then, if you have a certain training age and experience, the more you can rely on the signals that your body is telling you. And there it especially is the case that with certain movements, certain way of doing that specific movement just feels better, independent of maybe what other people are saying or so. And that is the same when it comes to, for example, pack deck is a great example of the way that I do my pack decks. Instead of sitting like very straight and upright, I'm actually sitting on the edge with my arse so that I'm more so in a slightly declined position, right? So that I can lean back in a slightly declined position and then coming like this. And that just feels much, much better to me from a stimulus perspective than any other way. And I think this is more so the message that I want to put across, that yes, I have experimented with it, but not because it is a lengthened partial. I have implemented it even in the past because it felt good to me and it felt stimulative. Not just like feeling good because certain things, stretching for some people feels good as well, but maybe doesn't really add any kind of benefits. But especially there, it feels good from a very much stimulus perspective. And I think that this is also something that you've said there, that for the first time in a very long time, your back actually feels disrupted.
Yeah, Yeah, it's that's why I like the biofeedback that stimulus gives you once you have an understanding of it, because I find that's a really great way to individualize training. Kaz had a post just recently about like talk about quads and his like practical recommendations. And as I was reading through it, Coach Kasim, that is for people who are unaware, I was just like, that really sounds like you're guiding training almost through SFR in many ways. And it's funny because SFR, like if you don't have a good sense of, and I think it is a tool to be used for more intermediate advanced trainees, if you don't have a good sense of what that feels like, because some people, because rightly so, part of stimulus is actually fatigue. Like, yeah. So it could be like a lot of people could misunderstand it and be like, oh, like I had a really high SFR because it really beat me up. Like I was really tired. And I'm like, oh no, that's the side of stimulus we don't want. Yeah. Like you could almost call it fatigue, like wanted fatigue to unwanted fatigue ratio versus like stimulus to fatigue ratio. But it's once you understand the sort of stimulus you're going for. And this is another great example is the single arm lat pull down actually. The way I was doing it was based off like some exercise videos I'd seen where people like coming across their body and coming down. And as I was going through it, I was like, I come up here and I'm like, I want to do this. And I come out here and a lot of people would say, oh, now you're taking tension off the lats or whatever. And I come over here and I'm like, I get the deepest stretch across my lats all here. And I'm just like, why would I stop here just because I've seen like a video where like there's no direct research on that is definitely the most optimal, whatever. And even if there was, that's based off averages. And I'm like, I'm getting this, again, sensation. I guess some people would argue you shouldn't use sensation, but I'm feeling this stretch across my lower lat down here. And I'm like, man, that's got to be something. And then the next day I'm feeling it there as well. I'm like, don't know. So there's definitely something to feeling out things for yourself.
Yeah, in the end, and let's just very much simplify things and break things down. If you have two scenarios, and one is you listen to that sensation that you were experiencing, such as like a very gnarly stretch and pump. And in the other scenario, someone tells you like, this isn't the right way to go about it. You do it the correct way and you don't experience that pump and gnarly sensation anymore. I have a hard time making an argument to then go with the latter, where you don't really feel that. I don't know, but the bro in me just tells me that the sensation of a disruption is possibly or probably the better way to go about it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I just, it's kind of, you could extend that to being like, oh, I don't know, whatever it is. Hack squats are the best quad machine, like the best quad exercise ever. But every time you do hack squats, you just feel it in your knees. Like your technique's really good. You've had it looked over. You just feel it in your knees. It just doesn't feel good to you. Maybe it's even your specific hack. It might not be oiled well. It might just not be a great machine. It might be angled off or something. And then you move to like a Smith machine squat and you're like, oh my God, this feels amazing in my quads. But on paper, the hack squat is meant to be more optimal. It supports the pelvis, whatever. It's like, yeah, but what's happening in real time is so much more important and valuable to you. So I think that's why you can't discount this biofeedback completely. It has to complement everything else that we have, where it's like, okay, so this is where, again, it's like science is your base. Like that 10 to 20 sets per muscle per week, which, like you said, could be completely off for a lot of people. It's like, it's a baseline is very wide range. Start with the lower, see how you respond, and then adjust over time. Yeah. And that's how all of this stuff has to go. And I think that's what we hope people realize. And I think that's ultimately what our coaching does, is like educate people on how to do that for themselves. So then it's like Jesus teaching people how to like make food and wine. And so we give our clients those skills for the future or whatever, or teaching people to fish. What was it? I don't even know. I'm not Christian. Don't crucify me.
Speaking of coaching, we will take a short break and then we are back with some more lessons about how to make wine and cheese.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
So here we are back again. Touching on the 10 to 20 sets, Steve, funny enough, someone else commented on the post that I did about this, that it's such an arbitrary number and that I think that it's not a correct range overall, because so many things go into figuring out what an acceptable amount of sets is for an individual, that it widens the range to somewhere around. I've seen people needing as little as 2 sets for something like hamstrings, and on arms and biceps and delts just can pound things out up to 25, 30 sets per week. And if you then have such an arbitrary range of like, hey, Steve, do you want to meet up? Yeah, sure. So when do you have time? So tomorrow or maybe in 10 years or so, somewhere in that time frame. Isn't helpful, isn't useful. And if you then have a range of like 2 to 30 or 4 to 25, it's such a wide range that it becomes useless. It doesn't really give you any kind of orientation anymore, right? And funny enough, someone else commented on that and said like that he hasn't heard anyone else actually talking about it or criticizing the 10 to 20 set mark to that extent. And I found it quite interesting because there are definitely certain things that the fitness industry in general is just has repeated so often that so many people just like accept that this is the truth, when in reality it's either it hasn't really proven to be the truth, or it's actually not the truth at all, but it has been just like paraphrased and parroted so often that we just took it on board and accepted as reality.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it is not wrong to say science suggests 10 to 20 sets, because that is what the science currently says. But it's then realizing once you're a practitioner how not helpful that can sometimes be. And actually the helpful thing is teaching people on how to navigate that, because it's even down, like you said, there's individual variability, but then it's like, where are you doing the sets? Like, are you training closer to failure, further from failure? Are you doing lengthened partials? Are you doing all short range? Are you doing all leg extensions? Or are you doing all squats? It's like someone could be like, oh yeah, okay, so I want my quads to grow. More volume is better. 20 sets. Let's do 10 sets of leg press, 10 sets of like barbell back squats. So I'll be like, fuck, you're going to be destroyed. And then they might be confused because they're like, but science says more volume, 10 to 20 sets, big compound list with like high SFR, high raw stimulus magnitude. It's like, how does that person then, they might feel completely like lied to. They'll be like, the evidence-based industry has lied to me. It's a scam. It's like, oh no, you've applied some of the stuff that gets somewhat parroted, and there is no education behind that message that gives further nuance and coaching. That's where coaching comes in again, to sell coaching.
Yeah. And I mean, so there are many things where the science is closer to than real life applications than other things. And I think that that recommendation is very far away from what I would suggest or recommend or even apply to the vast majority of my athletes, because I've seen it time and time again that the 10 to 20 set range is simply not applicable in real life applications most of the time, at least not for the demographic that I'm working with.
I find it really strange as well, because I think a lot of the recommendations also suggested that the legs could recover from more volume than the upper body. And that always was just like, hey, that goes against every like my experience and like within myself and clients. Legs, especially like you said, hamstrings can handle so little. And then that's where I dug into it and I was like, oh, Like they're counting a set of squats towards the hamstrings. Like what the fuck? Like the hamstrings are not being trained.
And that is the problem, because I had a look at the recent paper of Martin Rethelo as well at some point in regards to then failure training. And he was also then concluding that there isn't a general consensus of what training to failure actually is. And there's not a standardization across the scientific literature what proximity to failure and the training with a close proximity to failure or non-failure training actually means. And that is already is a big, big problem, because if you then take a look at their meta-analysis, you realize that they couldn't even include a lot of studies. It ended up being 15 studies only. 15. Right? That is not a lot. Over years of scientific literature in that field. Right? And that's why and that's the problem of exercise science most of the time. That funding, time, and also just the abundance of scientific papers aren't really there.
I think that's why it speaks so much to the idea of like take science like for what it is as like a basic general guideline, because in a lot of situations, there's pros and cons to like anecdote versus science, but I think at least science is in like a controlled setting. They're truly measuring things, but there's like better done studies, worse done studies. You have to include, not just be that, like again, like kind of what I spoke about with Pack and Milo when that comes out, where it's like you can't just be a pure out and out PubMed warrior and scream and shout at anyone who's doing something slightly different to the research, because practical experience matters a whole lot too, because again, N equals 1, and some of the research isn't as powerful or as convincing as others.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
How's training on your end?
It's going good.
Where are you at the moment?
Week number 4, and it was quite surprising, to be honest. Do you have it sometimes, Steve, that you're just ticking off the boxes, right? You don't have a clear structure on Monday is chest day, Tuesday is back day, right? I'm training 6 days per week. And sometimes I take a rest day when I need it. And this is also something that I've touched on recently, where I'm just like, I'm way less dogmatic of like, this needs to be my rest day. Because sometimes I get up in the morning and I feel trashed. And I still dragged my ass into the gym and had a shitty workout, or maybe even got injured, because I was simply not ready for then the session. And nowadays, I'm just like, all right, today I did 3 training sessions. I want to at least have like 3 training sessions in a row, if that's possible. And if I then need a rest day, I take the rest day. And sometimes I need to modify it because things in life happen. And then I take a rest day maybe as well, right? But I always like to have like 3 sessions in a row. And because of that, I was just like following the plan without actually looking at the number of the week number. And so I think yesterday it was that I got into the gym and I was like, oh man, I'm already feeling quite tired. What week am I in even? And I realized that I'm already in week number 4. So I don't know. Do you ever have something like this?
I definitely have it where the weeks creep up on me and I'm like, oh shit, how am I already like 3-4 weeks into this? I felt like I was just getting started. But I am not as good as you, and I do think it's a good thing that you're flexible with your rest days, where I am like someone who just likes Sunday's my rest day. It's always my rest day, and I have that off. And also I need to probably get better, and I can be more flexible when I'm forced to be. Unless someone forces me to be more flexible, I'm not. Where like I'm already planning backwards from like, I think it's July, where I have like a tattoo booked, and I'm like, okay, so I want to start my deload when I get that tattoo, and then I want to start prep on this certain date. So I'm already like tracking that far. And this is the trouble of when you track like a year in advance to plan it all out. It's got to be modified. So it's been a long time since I haven't taken a rest day on a Sunday and taken it on a different day. But also I do try and I'm sure you do this as well, where you create your microcycle, and it is meant to be so that you can do 6 days consecutively, maybe, where you should be recovered in time. But like you said, sometimes a spanner comes in the works, whatever, and you're not, especially I guess with kids.
Yeah. I mean, I do the same in kind of reverse engineering with specific dates, because there's probably always something where you want to then have the deload around or so. And also, I have to say that I like to get my training sessions in on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because these are the days where I'm normally not having any kind of check-ins. I'm not feeling stressed. Like, I'm not implying that it stresses me to do the check-ins, but I feel like there's unfinished business and I need to get home at that time because it's also 7 a.m. where I want to have breakfast with my family as well, etc. So there are a couple of kind of things, I don't know,
nagging you.
Yeah, to some extent. And
I get that.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's just like I could basically spend as much time as I want in the gym without any kind of stressor to some extent. And that's why I prefer definitely getting to the gym if I can make it on those days. And then I'm more flexible throughout the week when it comes to kind of taking rest days. If I could pick and choose it, then it's always on a day where I have the most amount of client check-ins. And that can vary depending on, because I'm doing the check-ins from Monday to Thursday. And sometimes it fluctuates, of course, with more clients on a specific day. And then I always like to rather take the rest day when I have more check-ins to go through.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember a time when it used to be really normal for online coaches to do all their check-ins on like a Sunday. I don't even know why it was Sunday, but they'd do like, I don't know how many, I wouldn't want to do, I couldn't do all my check-ins on one day. It would be a actually impossible task, I think. It would not be a fun day at all. It'd be like, my ability to like talk and check in with people would be so sacrificed to the end of that working day.
Man, I've seen coaches, and you've seen it as well, who are doing like 1 minute video check-ins to their clients, charging more money than us. And offering a high quality service. I mean, I do get it then. If you're probably not even watching the check-ins or not even receiving kind of video check-ins or voice message check-ins from your clients. It's more like, here are my macros. All right, let's get to it. Hey, then I can probably also work my way through 100 check-ins on a day.
Yeah. So I totally see that. I don't know where I was going with this. But yeah, I do. It's always when we have the improvement season is normally the day where I feel most like I have a time limit that I have to get back by.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I need to make sure I don't do too many check-ins in the morning. Sometimes I get carried away because I'm just in a flow. And then I'm like, oh no, I need to get to the gym by this time and finish by this time to get back for the improvement season. But most other days, unless I have either consultation or a podcast booked in, I normally have like more freedom. But the weekend, like you said, on a Saturday, I can take as long as I like in the gym. And it's quite nice to have that freedom. And you probably have it with some of your clients. So sometimes they go in their lunch break or something. And I'm like, man, that is like, I would hate that. Or they go before work or something like that, where they're like, if they wake up half an hour later, they've missed half their session. It's like, that's real tough. So we're definitely in a very fortunate position.
Yeah. To that extent, though, I always recommend to the vast majority of my athletes, and that is something that people normally don't do, to get the training session done early in the morning. Because especially when you are not in a situation such as you and I, Steve, where we just have the luxury of actually going whenever we want to, and there are other obligations throughout the day, it's way more likely that you end up skipping sessions when you delay it to the end of the day. Skip it because you are busy. Skip it because you're stressed. Skip it because you're now lethargic because the day was stressful and also hard as well, rather than getting it done early in the morning. And this is one of the biggest recommendations that I have for people who don't get in their training sessions on a regular basis. Just put it into the morning. Get up maybe half an hour earlier or so. Get it done, because nothing is in front of that then tires you out or anything like that, distracts you. You get the work done, and then you do your due diligence, and you can move on with all of the other obligations and tasks. And when you're then very tired by the end of the day, doesn't really matter. Then you can actually relax on the couch and let the day just fade out.
Yeah, I think that's a great recommendation, to be honest. Because again, like things can, like maybe you need to stay at work a little bit later, or
for example, people
want to go out for drinks or a meal or whatever it is, people want to socialize. You're like, oh no, I have to go to the gym. It's like, yeah, but if you've done it in the morning, then you're free to go do those other bits. The only downside is if people aren't diligent to getting to bed and then they wake up completely fatigued or they sleep through their alarm. But you have control over normally your bedtime. And then you have control over your wake time, and then that opens that window of opportunity to train in the morning. So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah. And if you really compare it to another, on one scenario, there will be the likelihood that there are way more chances that you won't make it to the gym than the other one.
Yeah.
The other one is maybe like you get up in the morning and you feel very trash. And that is hardly ever actually the case. But there aren't any kind of distractions. There isn't like any other obligations, because most of the time, appointments aren't during that time. There's not your boss saying like, hey, so you need to actually come in earlier this time. It's hardly ever going to happen. And it's way less likely that you are then missing sessions.
Yeah, no, completely. How's your nutrition going? Standard, I guess, like you're just ticking the boxes and it's moving along and weight's creeping up.
Yeah, unfortunately, so I'm back now, closing in on 80 kilograms this time. Unfortunately, our kitchen is right now renovated, and we've already removed a couple of things there. And the painter did, as you know, last time the painter was actually doing his job downstairs, and now they actually told us that the kitchen itself is first coming like 2 weeks later. Now, the kitchen isn't really a nice place right now. You can't really cook. I mean, you can cook, but it's not really nice to actually then prepare food. Everything is crammed and all that kind of stuff. So right now, still not struggling with the nutrition. I'm not implying that, but it's not the typical routine, but I'm still getting the typical stuff in. That's for sure.
Okay.
What about you?
I was going to say you're just doing Deliveroo. Deliveroo meals.
No.
That'd get expensive. It's been actually, I forget how nice post mini cut is. It is like any post diet phase where you got quite lean, you just end up looking fuller in the gym, you look better, your appetite is good. And so actually, if anything, like I'm struggling to keep my calories under control. I'm like, I could eat more. For whatever reason, I think it's when you're in a dieting position, you can deal with the hunger, because I'm just like, I just have to have this. I stick to these meals. Whereas now I'm gaining, I'm like, I don't know, the body just gets that like sense of, just have a bit more. And like it opens up the floodgates a little bit. So I have managed 2 days. I went over my calories by 100 by kind of accident, but also I was like, there was a packet of Weetabix. There was 3 in there. I was like, really, I just need 2. But fuck, this is annoying. I'm just going to have the 3rd one, you know? It's rare that I make those decisions. And actually, I did reduce my calories over the weekend to average things out. So I'm not like, this is like as flexible as I get a lot of the time.
Living on the edge, Steve. You're taking some risks.
And a Weetabix. It's honestly, like my mind is kind of blown. You take me now versus how I started. Yeah. Like I kind of want to keep notes of how good. Well, actually, I guess this is kind of keeping notes, talking about it here. But my appetite is so much better. Like I can eat meals. I look forward to I remember starting the mini cut, and I didn't want to have oats in the morning because I was like, and then I started having them, and I was like, I'm still force feeding them after the first couple of weeks. And now I look forward to my oats, and I have it with like a side of cereal. I'm just like, man, this is easy to get down. I could eat more than this if I needed to. So yeah, it's in a good place, and I'm also already feeling the benefits within training, where I just don't feel as like just volume tolerance. I just feel more able to get through the sessions and can recover from it quite comfortably. Whereas before, like especially as I was approaching failure, my performance on subsequent sets would get hit way worse than it is now. I'm way more able to repeat performance, which makes sense. I've got more recovery reserves, more glycogen to be able to recover and perform well. So it's just, I think mini cuts are nice for that reason, because they remind you of like how to be diligent during cutting phases, and also like, they just kind of give you a little bit of a taster for competitors of when you will eventually have to cut. And also that post mini cut period where it is like the temptations to binge and rebound. And that's what it is. It's like a yo-yo diet, so that they are more of an advanced tool for people who can handle their nutrition really well, not for people who are just like, I want to lose some fat really fast and the trouble can ensue. So it kind of teaches you to have diligence and take care of that post mini cut period, which again post show, or if you have high like diet breaks during cutting periods or during your contest prep, like, okay, oh, this is okay, I have to rein that in. So yeah, it's been nice. Long may it continue. We'll have to see.
It's very interesting because in the past we never really fully discussed and considered using mini cuts in a scenario like this. We've always talked more about it to extend the gaining phase, not necessarily to resensitize you in terms of hunger and just overall well-being in order to then extend the gaining phase. It was always more like thought of in reducing the body fat primarily, a little bit more so, right? I mean, one leads to the other, but this time, and what I found to be the case is with natural athletes who have a caloric intake that is beyond 4,000 calories, except for those who are very, very small in height, but still have a high caloric intake, or I don't know, some people who are even bigger and then go way beyond the 4,000 calories. But someone like you, right? Some kind of average size, so average height, and then still have a very, very high caloric intake. I think those are the ones who would benefit from mini cuts for resensitization purposes, from a hunger perspective and all that kind of stuff. Because I don't want that people abuse mini cuts in one way or another. Because you know, Steve, that some people justify a mini cut because they didn't really do their due diligence in a gaining phase of keeping things together. They ended up being more complacent and they gained way more fat than they wanted to. And now they are throwing in a mini cut. I don't really think that this is a good idea. Neither do I think it's a good idea to then have the person feeling shitty, but always immediately when they are feeling shitty, coming to the conclusion, once again a mini cut, and 8 weeks have passed, once again a mini cut, right? Kind of abusing the mini cut for what it actually isn't. It should only be a tool that is used very sparingly and when you really need it. But at the same time, it's not only there to then prolong a gaining phase, but also to resensitize you, reset certain markers, biomarkers in your body, in order then to or further extend the gaining phase. And I never really thought about it that much to that extent before we have talked about it a little bit more so, and before I've used it with some of my athletes, because you actually brought me to that idea as well.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well stated. It's kind of like we talk about having some like discretionary calories when you're massing. You don't save calories really, like you shouldn't generally save calories in order to eat that food. It's more so you're so full, so you need to have the more palatable discretionary calories to keep massing. It's same with a mini cut. It's not like you do it because you created damage. It's like, no, you've done all your due diligence. You've done everything you can to prevent needing a mini cut, gaining slowly and like eating the right things, what have you. And then it's just like, man, I just, it's the right answer here is to take this right now. It's like deloading at an appropriate time. You've kind of accumulated fatigue well and had many good weeks of hard training. You haven't just gone balls out from week 1 and week 2, you need a deload or something. And that's like, you just end up going up and down. Yeah. And that's something for me, like it would be really easy right now for me to go back to 4,000 calories plus and just be like, oh yeah, I'll regain weight really quickly. But then I've eaten up that really productive time that I'm in now where my appetite is good, I feel really well, and I just need to have some care over eating 3,700 calories. Like it's still a lot of food. But I would hate to see someone be like, oh man, I'm just hungry and I just want to eat more and it feels good to eat more at this period of time. And then they just jump. It's kind of like post-show and someone rebounds up to their like starting off-season body weight. It's like you've just taken like 10% of your body weight where you could have slowly been gaining in that time and in a really productive, healthy state. So I'd hate people to, again, it could used inappropriately be used as a yo-yo diet where it's like trying to undo damage that shouldn't have been there in the first place and then they rebound into it.
No, absolutely. And I think that it takes a lot of self-discipline and also being absolutely honest with yourself in realizing that perhaps you are abusing something. And often we know it in looking back in hindsight, but then it's often of no use anymore because you came to that realization when the damage already happened. But for example, we've talked about it for me personally. I needed to accept that in the past, I've always gained way too fast or way too quickly. And I didn't really want it to be the case, because I also wanted to be someone who is able to eat more. And that unfortunately isn't me. And I had to come to terms with that I'm someone who is gaining already on lower amounts of calories. And instead of always making the same mistake, because I want it to be reality and I want it to be the truth, being absolutely honest with yourself is the way to go, because otherwise you're always making the same mistake. And after you're making the same mistake twice, in my opinion, it becomes kind of a decision of yours. And that, especially in the sport of bodybuilding or that kind of stuff, is not the way to go. That's not how you make the best progress and best use of your time.
Yeah. I think it's so valuable having both of our ends of the spectrum experience, because like we are almost at opposite ends of the spectrum. Most people listening are probably somewhere in the middle, and so they can understand both ends and hopefully land in that sweet spot of what, like, and I still have people ask me like, how much should I be gaining weight each week? And I'm like, I give them a range and they're like, what, at 0.25 or 0.5? And I'm like, no, anywhere within this range, even if you're slightly above or slightly below, is still okay, as long as it's slowly creeping up over time. And I don't recommend you do it on a week to week basis and actually look 2 weeks. Zoom out a little bit. But people want that like pinpoint precise answer. And like your Instagram posts and what we talked about last time, it's just generally doing the right things over time is going to breed results.
Yeah. That's also why, and going all the way back to the lengthened partials and all that kind of stuff. And I think I was way too harsh in the past for certain or on certain individuals when it comes to the way that they've been rowing, for example, because they probably still provided a stimulus. Of course, you can then get down into the nitty-gritty things of like, are you really getting the most out of things? It's still questionable, and I still stand to then what I've been saying. But at the same time, I think my stance was still too harsh, because they still provided us as obviously sufficient stimulus for them in order to grow. Because the proof is in the pudding. They still grew.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's exactly the same way, I think, where I had it with like reps in reserve and thinking that was so much more superior than failure training. And it's like you said, there's proof in the pudding. Like they may not even be training to failure every session. They may be using reps in reserve, as like some people I think probably are, but it doesn't matter. Like ultimately results speak. And so and ultimately they're reaching a proximity to failure, and they're seeing results. So it's like, you have to kind of sometimes like pinch yourself and take yourself back and be like, actually, there are many roads to Rome. Yes, there's little nuances of traveling there better, but like people are still traveling.
Yeah, and no one of us is at the level of someone like Ronnie Coleman, for example, where you then can raise the questions of like, was this the right way of training and going about things? Would there have been a different approach that would have been better or more sustainable? We are not at that crossroad, and we don't have to make that decision. We are never probably even getting close to getting to the position where someone like Ronnie is. And that's why we don't even need to fight over these kind of questions. Of course, we can have nuanced discussions of what may perhaps yield better results. But in the end, it's like you said, the results are the only thing that matters after all. As long as you're not completely damaging yourself.
Yeah. Not to extend this too far, but the more I think about it, the less value I find in watching enhanced competitors and what's like breeding results for them when I understand how much goes into that as well. But that's a complete different subject, but I just thought I'd say it.
No, you're absolutely right. And just to confirm, or to agree with you there as well. I've seen people like jumping on gear and man, they've blown up without changing anything at all. Right? And you've also then seen people who just like increased, or when they hit a plateau, they do sloppy things about their training and nutrition. They just increase the dosage and then
up the dose.
And immediately just get to the next level. I think that many people are ignorant to how much of an impact like drugs can have, because I think it's a soothing thought to know that, or to think that it doesn't really have that much of a significant impact. And also for those who are enhanced, it's kind of a way of thinking that they are great, that they are doing things correctly, that it's not just the drugs, or mostly just the drugs, right? Because no one wants to hear that, I don't know, you're actually not working as hard as you think. And I think that especially the pros, they work hard, most of them, right? But there's still plenty of people, and if you just take a look at the statistic in the UK, for example, how many people take anabolic steroids, you would believe that there are so many people out there on the streets, just from the statistics alone. Every single time that you're walking out on the street, you should see people who are massive otherwise.
Yeah.
But they aren't, right? And it has often then to do that they aren't really training as hard as they think, and they are maybe not taking as much drugs for then the results. And yeah, but it's like you said, it's kind of a completely different discussion in itself.
I think it's getting better as there seems to be like a healthier model coming through, and I guess then people are learning how to use training and nutrition to get results versus just upping the dose. But a lot of the background from what I gather from other coaches was the coach would just increase the dose when plateaus occurred. So it's like, I don't know. But
that's why I really appreciate those people who are very transparent about it, who are like at the top, working with maybe top athletes, or are a top athlete themselves and are having transparent discussions with people in the field. And those are the ones who can then share what's truly going on. Yeah. And often it is just that. Like
100%.
upping the dose. Those who can survive are the ones who then shine. It's kind of like back then, Chinese Olympians, you have like 10,000 kids and just like 4 make it to the top. Everyone else is just like destroyed and pushed to the side.
Yeah.
That's what it's like.
It's scary. The final note, someone compared me and my physique to Nick Walker, and they said if I was to jump on gear, I'd probably look similar to Nick Walker. And I was like, interesting take.
All right.
I think he clearly not genetically well set up for bodybuilding, apart from I think he probably deals with drugs. Well, most definitely deals with drugs pretty fucking well.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing.
Anyway,
So guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Anything to plug, Steve? Anything to say?
If you have listened this far, geez, you better be tuning into the Revive Stronger podcast, where we interview experts in the field. Someone reminded me that we should probably tell the listeners who maybe only tune into these episodes that they should also tune into the Revive Stronger podcast. But I imagine most people do listen to this. And also, like you've said before, or we were talking off air, because we've separated these at least away from YouTube, that the downloads are a little bit down for the improvement season. So if you want to share these episodes, let people know that it's great and that you're enjoying it and that we've moved to its own kind of platform, then please do share it so that people are aware of it. Otherwise, I don't think there's anything necessarily to plug. I've already plugged coaching. So yeah.
Cool. Then guys, thank you very much for listening, and speak to you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.